Ry ava-malala ao amin'ny tompo, fifaliana lehibe ny fampiarabantsika amin'ity hariva ity, ary eto aloha dia isaorana manokana ny antoko-pihira adventista amin'ny fiangonana adventista ao Mandrosoa. Tena nientanentana tokoa ny fanahy ary efa nomanina izy ireo sady isika andray ny tenin'Andriamanitra. Ko dia mbola mamerina ny fiarabana antsika menakavy tratra n'izao hariva izao. Ity androany ity moa zany dia azo lazaina fa toy ny efa natao tamin'ny maraina. Zay efa namelabelarana fohifohy teto ny amin'ilay loha-hevitra zay hobanjintsika. Ka araky ny voalaza teo dia fotoana manokana tokoa izao fotoana iarantsika izao, satria eto no andraisantsika ny tsy ambaratelo atongatsika mba ho ela velona, tsy ho ela velona marary fa ela velona salama. Ry ava-malala, isika dia miara-manaiky fa zava-dehibe tokoa ny fahasalamana. Manaiky an'izany ventsika atsangano ny tanana zay manaiky fa zava-dehibe ny fahasalamana. Misaotra antsika rehetra, ary izany indrindra ny maheto antsika amin'izao fotoana izao, satria irintsika tokoa izany atao hoe ho salama izany. Ary ny loha-hevitra zay banjintsika moa araky ny voalaza teo dia ny hoe inona ny tokony ataontsika mba ho ela velona. Atsangano hoe ny tanana zay te ho ela velona. Ay, tena te ho ela velona avokoa itsika menakavy, ary tena ao anatiny mihitsy zany izao programa zay iraisantsika izao. Raha mandinika isika ndraindray isika milaza maheno teny kanefa tsy dia tena alalinina tsara ny ataontsika hoe ny zava-dalina finotsiny zany. Ohatra ny tsodrano, ho ela velona ne, tsy mifono faniriana lalina ve zany hoe ela velona ne ianao. Ary na eo amin'ny tanindrazana aza dia voalaza manao hoe ho ela velona ne Madagasikara, ho ela velona. Zany hoe efa faniriana lalina ao am-pony tsiraray avy ny amin'ity hoe atonga antsika mba ho ela velona. Misy koa aza faniriana anankiray izay atao hoe malasa eritreritra lalina izy io, hoengane mba alevonjanaka fa tsy andevonjanaka. Fomba fitenin'ny malagasy izany. Faniriana zany hoe tsy ny ray aman-dreny no mandevona ny zanaka, fa ny zanaka no mandevona ray aman-dreny. Faniriana lalina ao am-ponin'ny olona, zany atao hoe mba ho ela velona izany. Tamin'ny maraina ho an'ireo zay nanatrika teto dia efa nilazaina sahady ny antony hoe maninona moa no tsy mety zatra fahafatesana isika olombelona. Ny antony dia tsy natao ho faty isika. Raha namorona antsika Andriamanitra dia tsy namorona antsika ho faty izy, tsy namorona antsika harary izy, fa namorona antsika mba ho velona mandrakizay. Namorona antsika izy mba ho salama, ho tomaty. Kanefa araky ny fantatsika dia tsy nandeha araky ny tokony ho izy izany faniriana izany, satria Andriamanitra dia nanome safidy malalaka ny olombelona ny anaiky azy na ny tsy anaiky azy. Ary zany indrindra tao amin'ny saha Edena no nandahan'Andriamanitra ny olombelona, nanjary tsy nankato azy izy, ka ny voankazo zany hoe ilay voa zay norarana tsy hohanina indro fa nohaniny Adama sy Eva izany. Ary zany tsy fankatoavana izany ry havana no nahatonga an'izao fahoriana izay miatra amintsika menakavy izao. Nefa Andriamanitra tsy manao hoe ianareo zany efa nasaina tsy nikasika an'io voankazo io azo io, noho izany dia avelako ho faty ianareo, avelako ho very mandrakizay ianareo. Andriamanitra dia feno fitiavana, ary zany indrindra no nanaovany drafitra indray atonga atsika mba hanana an'izany fiainana mandrakizay izany. Kanefa tsy maintsy mandalo amin'ny fahafatesana aloha. Marina fa rehefa ho avy Jesosy dia misy ireo izay tsy handalo fahafatesana, satria miova ao anatin'ny ray mpimaso. fa isika olombelona dia mampalahelo fa tsy maintsy mandalo amin'izany fahafatesana izany. Isika reto raha maharitra ny androny tany dia tsy maintsy mandalo amin'izany fahafatesana izany avokoa. Ary io moa ny voalazan'ny tolo malagasy hoe ny tanora no ny antitra ho azo amorotevana ary ny tanora mivaty manonona ka tsy fantatra izay ho lasa loha. Zany hoe tsy fantatra zany na tanora isika, maro hoe tanora izay ndosy ny fahafatesana. Ny antitra dia mazava ho azy ihany koa fa efa mizotra amin'izany. Koa isika izao dia mandalo amin'izany fahafatesana izany avokoa. Kanefa Andriamanitra dia manana plan, ary zany no dinitsika, manana planina izy mba ahatonga atsika anana ny fiainana mandrakizay. Tsy mampisaotra an'Andriamanitra ve zany planina izany ry havana? Misaotra azy isika satria tsy navelany amin'izao. Ka ny planin'Andriamanitra dia izao, tsy avelany raha tsy miaina miaraka amin'ny mandritra ny mandrakizay ireo zay vonina iaina mandritra ny mandrakizay. Fa ireo kosa zay mandahany zany fiainana mandrakizay zany dia mampalahelo fa ho very mandrakizay. Ka ho antsika izay iaina andova ny fiainana mandrakizay, eto amin'ity toerana ity, eto amin'ity tany ity, eo am-piandrasana ny fiavian'i Jesosy Kristy, eo am-piandrasana an'izany planina lehibe izany mba ho tanteraka. Dia zao, tian'Andriamanitra mba ho salama isika, tian'Andriamanitra mba ho tomady isika, tian'Andriamanitra mba ho ela velona isika. Ao amin'ny Deutéronomia, ao amin'ny Deutéronomia ry havana, ka ny toko fahatelo amby telopolo, dia zao no fanambarana izay voalasa. Io dia manambara ny fanirian'Andriamanitra nomena antsika tsiraray avy. Mahavelombolo tokoa izany ry havana. Ao amin'ny toko fahatelo amby telopolo, ao amin'izany Deutéronomia zany. Ka ny andininy fahadimy amby roapolo, dia izao no fanambarana. Ny andininy fahadimy amby roapolo, vakitsika amin'ny anaran'ny Tompo izany teny mahafinaritra dia mahafinaritra izany. Ato amin'ity teny ity, somary miraikitra kely, izao no voalasa. Vakitsika rehefa hita, ovy sy varahana ny hidinao, ary famatra amin'ny andronao ny fiadananao. Ary le hoe fiadananao dia ny tanjakao. Ifamatra amin'ny andronao ny tanjakao sy ny fahasalamanao. Izany hoe ny tenin'Andriamanitra zany dia manambara ny fanirian'Andriamanitra dia zao mifamatra. Zany hoe raha manana andro ataontsika hoe 100 n'olona anankiray, dia tian'Andriamanitra ny atonga ny fahasalamany mandritra n'izany 100 andro izany. Raha manana 10 taona ohatra na 20 taona, dia tian'Andriamanitra mba hifamatra amin'izany. Zany hoe ny tian'Andriamanitra raha ny planin'Andriamanitra zany dia ny hoe tsy hoe marary na hoe marefo dia marefo, fa ny faniriny dia zao amintsika eo am-piandrasana n'ilay fiainana mandrakizay dia tiany mba hifamatra. Zany hoe mitovy amin'ny halavan'ny androm-piainantsika, ny halavan'ny fahasalamantsika. Ary tanteraka izany tamin'ny lehilahin'Andriamanitra anankiray, dia tsy iza fa Mosesy. Mosesy no modely tamin'izany. Izao ny voalaza ao amin'ny toko faha-4 amby telopolo, ary ny andininy faha-7, izao ny fitantarana. Efa 20 taona Mosesy vao maty. Zany hoe maty izy zany. Ary tsy pahana ny masony na ny hena ny heriny. Zany hoe Mosesy zany dia niaina nandritra ny 4 taona ry havana. 20 taona. 20 taona. Ary dia zao tsy pahana ny masony ary tsy ny hena ny heriny. Ka lay voalaza ao amin'ny ity toko fahatelo amby telopolo ity zany a dia tanteraka ao amin'ny toko fahaefatra amby telopolo. Ny planin'Andriamanitra dia ny ahatanteraka an'izany eo amin'ny fiainantsika. Dia zao ao amin'ny salamo, amin'ny salamo faharoa amby sivifolo ary ny andininy fa roa ambin'ny folo ka hatramin'ny andininy fa efatra ambin'ny folo dia lazainy ao fa hoe na dia antitra aza dia mbola dofodofotra ary mbola mitondra voa. Izany hoe ny planin'Andriamanitra zany dia zao, na dia mandeha aza ny taona dia mbola afaka manao zavatra be dia be. Ary ny tenanay dia nahita olona takan'izany. Tany tao a Jona nisy ray aman-dreny lehibe anankiray. 12 amby 100 taona izy. 12 amby 100 taona izy a, izay zao mihitsy nahita azy ary nasiony ny karatra naterana sy ny sisa. 12 amby 100 taona izy rehefa niaony zay. Dia zao io ray aman-dreny io a dia mbola miasa tany izy. Miasa tany izy a ao anatin'ny enin'andro isan-kerinandro, manomboka amin'ny 5 maraina ary mefara amin'ny 5 hariva miasa, ary mbola afaka manao fihetsehana. Dia zao nolazainy zaho izy izy miasa, tsy hoe miasa moramora fa tena miasa mafy mihitsy, ary ny sainy mbola matanjaka. Dia hoe hoe tena mampiatra voalaza mihitsy mamiseho zany a fa tanteraka ny voalaza ato amin'ity tenin'Andriamanitra ity ho an'ny olana sasany. Tany a Zimbabwe dia nisy an'izay 220 amby 100 taona dia mbola loholom-piangonana, mbola salama. Ary nefa rano moa dia ndray andro izy manao hoe rakizy nivorininy zany ny fianakaviana, dia hozy izy hoe efa mba ela zay niainako zay fa andeha hiala sasatra amin'izay. Dia zao samy matoky ianareo ary miaona isika rehefa tonga, rehefa ho avy Jesosy any amin'ny fitsanganana amin'ny maty. Dia lasa natory izy tamin'iny alina iny dia maty tsy nifohy intsony. 220 amby 100 taona, zava-magaga. Ary any Amerika any amin'ny ty université Lomalinda zay tonga eto, maro ireo olona zay manana taona ambony. Tamin'ny taona lasa moa nisy ray aman-dreny lehibe zay niaraka tamiko teto, Dr. Jona izay 100 taona, efa nandray raiky amby 100 taona izy, dia mbola nandeha fiaramanidina tompoko avy any Amerika hatratia, dia mbola nanofana. Magaky zany, ela velona. Ary misy takan'izany maro amin'ny toerana maro samihafa. Koa ity hoe ela velona ity zany a dia tena zava-misy izy io. Ka mandritra ny tindroandro ity dia andinika isika ny amin'ny hoe inona ny tokony atao mba tonga an'izany ho tanteraka. Tianareo fantatra ve ny tsy ambaratelo hoe inona ny mba tonga antsika ho ela velona sy ho salama ary ho tomaty takan'izany? Atsangany ny tanany zay mba maniry ahita afantatra eno an'izany. Ka dia zao aoka ho tonga tsy tapaka isika ary mitondra ihany koa namana, satria azavaina mitoy zany ny amin'ny tenin'Andriamanitra. Dia ireto profesora amin'ny malaza amin'ny fitsaboana reto sy ny fahasalamana reto dia amelabelatra amintsika eto ny amin'ny hoe inona moa ny tokony atao amin'izany. Ka izao tianao maranako azy, ndray mandeha nividy fiara zany a, efa nampiasa fiaran'le namako le izy a, dia nividiko tany Amerika. Dia zao ozy izy, raha tsy niseho ozy izy a ny ampatezany ty fiara ty, dia zao ny carburant apetraka ato a dia super, fa tsy le ambanimbaniny zany. Raha tsy zany ozy izy ty fiara ty a dia tsy ateza. Dia ianao zany mieritreritra hoe lafo zany carburant zany, kanefa tiana le hoe ampateza an'le fiara dia nanina, dia isaky ny makany amin'ny station essence dia io zany novidiana satria tiana ny ampateza azy. Dia zao mba nanana tombontsoa koa zany nividy fiara vaovao. Dia zao io ozy izy a misy garantie izy io ao anatin'ny 10 taona ka izao ny fepetra tsy maintsy arana rehefa mavita 840 kilometatra dia tsy maintsy atao entretien ary ato any nanaovana azy fa raha tsy zany ozy izy dia miala le garantie satria tsy ateza ilay fiara dia manao satria zany no atao mba ampateza le izy ka izao Andriamanitra araky ny voalaza izy no mpanao antsika rehefa mividy machine anankiray na fiara dia zao misy le atao hoe mode d'emploi na ny fomba fikarakarana ny fampiasana an'izany appareil izany dia raha tiana ny ampatezana io appareil io dia ina no atao arana amin'ny antsipriny ireo zavatra rehetrarehetra zay atao dia takan'izany koa izany isika ny tenin'Andriamanitra dia milaza fa Andriamanitra ilay voalaza ao amin'ny Salamo 107 ary Isaia 4:80 ary ny 9 manao hoe Andriamanitra ny mpanao antsika resana le hoe mpamorona fa amin'ny reteny dia mpanao antsika izy zany no atao hoe nandrafitra antsika izy no ingénieur dia izy no malalany amin'ny hoe inona no atao mba ampatezana io appareil io ka raha rana zany ny fitsipika izay napetrak'Andriamanitra nomen'Andriamanitra antsika izy ilay nanao antsika izy ilay nandrafitra antsika izy ilay nanamboatra antsika dia zany no tonga antsika ho ela velona zany no tonga antsika ateza satria manaraka ny toromarika ilay mpanao antsika fa raha tsy arana kosa io dia aretina no avy farerana ary tsy ela velona koa ny faniriana ho antsika dia mba andinika tsara ary anaraka isika ny amin'ny hoe inona ny tokony atao amin'izany koa dia omena ny anankiray amin'ireo mpandateny izay anompoka an'izany ifanesy izy ireo ka iangaviana zany izay anompoka zay tsy iza izany fa ny professeur Roger Schwalt zay professeur de médecine malaza ny États-Unis ary maneran-tany mihitsy aza manana fahaizana manokana manana spécialité maro de maro kanefa dia tonga izy mandray anjara ary anome antsika ny amin'ny hoe inona ny tokony atao mba aela velona ary inona daholy ireo fomba reo fitsipika zay arana amin'izany koa dia omentsika azy ny fitenenana ary dia adikany docteur vao nahazo ny doctorany moa pasteur Yatsa mbola tsy zatra ny sofiny fa efa mariny zay zavatra zay eny ary.
Good evening.
Mirabatsika amty ariva ty manaona daholitsika.
My name is Dr. Roger Schwelt, and it's a pleasure to be here all the way from California.
Roger Schwelt ny anarako ary tena fala miaraka aminareo eto avy California.
When I left California a couple of days ago, it was very hot.
Rehefa niala tany California andro vitsivitsy lasa zay dia tena nafana tany.
And I had to remind myself that I was going to Africa to cool off.
Ary dia niteneniko ny tenako zany hoe andeha any Afrika ianao dia mba mahazo mangatsitsika kely zany.
Today I want to talk to you about something that's very important for your health, and that, believe it or not, is sunlight.
Dia amin'ity ariva ty zany dia resaka zavatra anankiray zay tena zava-dehibe amin'ny fahasalamana na mino ianareo na tsy mino dia ny tanamasoandro izany.
Now, many people believe that the purpose of sunlight is only to get vitamin D.
Ny olona dia maro mihevitra fa ny tena ilana ny tanamasoandro dia ny ananana vitamine D fotsiny.
And if you want to avoid the sun, all you have to do is take vitamin D and you'll get all the benefits from the sun.
Ary raha ohatra ka tsy te taninandro ianao dia mihinana vitamine D fotsiny zany dia fa afaka miala tsy mitaninandro.
Completely incorrect.
Tena tsy marina nefa izany, diso tanteraka izany.
I want to show you today that getting outside in the sun is very important for your health.
tiako zany nilaza aminareo fa ny mandeha mivoaka amin'ny tanin'andro eny ivelany eny dia tena zava-dehibe ilaina amin'ny fahasalamana.
And I don't want you to follow the same route of chronic disease that we have in the United States.
Ary tsy tiako ianareo hanana ny tsy fahasalamana zay mpahazo anay any amin'ny faritry Amerika.
Because many people in the United States simply stay inside the whole day.
Satria ny olona any Amerika ny akamaroany dia mipetraka ao anaty trano mandritra ny tontolo andro.
And I know that you spend much more time outside than we do, and I don't want you to get the way we are.
Ary hitako zany fa ianareo aty dia mivoaka ny ivelany misimisy kokoa noho izay, ary noho izany dia azo fahasalamana tokony azo fahasalamana tsaratsara kokoa noho izay.
The enemy of longevity is chronic disease.
Ny fahavalon'ny fahavelomana ela dia ny aretina mpahazo matetika zany kronika, maladie chronique.
And many of the diseases that we see in industrialized countries are the diseases that we have there on the screen.
Ary ny aretina zay matetika hitatsika ny amin'ny tany andalam-pandrosoana zay betsaka ny industrie sy ny orinasa dia ireo hitatsika eo amin'ny efijery ireo.
Heart disease, diabetes, obesity, dementia, etc.
Ny aretina areti-po, ny diabeta, ny obésité lay matavy loatra sy ny sisa sy ny sisa.
All of these diseases have one thing in common.
Ary ireo aretina rehetra ireo dia misy zavatra ray iombonana.
It is something called mitochondrial dysfunction.
Dia lay zavatra tsoina hoe tsy fiasana araka ny tokony ho izy ny mitochondrie. Tsy fantatro moa ny dokotera raha afaka manampy any tena teny gasy. Tsy miasa araka ny tokony ho izy zany mitochondrie.
In all of our cells are little engines.
Zany hoe ao amin'ny sela rehetra dia misy ny ohatran'ny moteur kely io.
They're like batteries.
Tahaka ny hoe bateria zany.
Just like the engine in your car.
Tahaka ny moteur ao amin'ny fiaratsika.
The engine in your car uses fuel.
Ny moteur ao amin'ny fiaratsika dia mampiasa lasantsy na gasoil, mampiasa anareny
to make the wheel spin.
mba ahafahan'ny moteur miodina araka ny tokony ho izy.
Same thing with the mitochondria, except instead of making the wheel spin, it gives energy to your cells.
Dia mitovy amin'izay zany ny asan'ity mitochondrie ity tsy hoe manodina an'le moteur fa manome hery an'ireo sela.
Now, what happens if your car's engine is not cooled? It overheats and it shuts down.
Inona ny zavatra miseho raha toka misofo isika na mamay loatra amin'ny moteur dia maty ho azy amin'ny fiara zany.
And these little engines in your cells can overheat and they can shut down, and that causes disease.
Ary izay ihany koa zany lay moteur kely eo amin'ny sela io dia mety mafana be loatra misofy dia miteraka ny aretina.
But we don't call it heat inside the cell. We call it something called oxidative stress.
Satria tsy atsona hoe mafana loatra zany lay izy raha ao amin'ny sela fa atsona ny hoe stress oxydatif io ny atsona azy.
But we're finding out that the body has a way of keeping these little engines cool, and it's called a substance called melatonin.
Fa ao amin'ny vatantenao nefa dia misy an'ilay atsona hoe mélatonine zay mitahiry na miazona an'io sela kely moteur an'le sela kely io zany mba tsy afana be loatra fa angatsisika mandrakariva.
This is a very powerful antioxidant, and your body makes it all by itself.
Ary tena ilain'ny tenatsika zany io ary ny tenatsika ihany mamokatra azy lay mélatonine zay mampangatsiatsika an'le moteur an'le sela io.
But science is finding out that there's a way, a substance, something that we can do that can improve or increase melatonin inside of our cells.
Fa ny siansa ny fikarohana zany dia nahita fa misy fomba zay azontsika hatao hanatsarana ny fomba fiasan'io mélatonine io.
And guess what that is?
Ary mba fantatrareo hoe inona zay fomba zay?
Guess what we're talking about today?
Dia le zavatra zay ho resahantsika androany. Inona lay izy?
The sun.
Masoandro.
The sunlight can penetrate deeply into the body and cause this to happen inside the cells.
Ny tanamasoandro zany zay tafiditra ny anatin'ny tenatsika any no mitarika ny mélatonine io hanana an'izay fa fahamanao izay.
This is an article published in 2019 saying exactly that infrared light, this is the light that you cannot see from the sun, can penetrate into the body and cause these changes.
Io fikarohana natao tamin'ny 7-20 io zany milaza an'izay hoe na dia tsy tamasitsika raha dia afaka miditra ny anatin'ny tenatsika io taramasoandro zay manatsara ny fiasan'ny mélatonine io.
This is the type of light that can pass right through your hand, as you can see here on this slide, looking at infrared light.
Raha jerena amin'ilay infrarouge zany dia io le hazavana zay miditra any amin'ny tenatsika any.
This is how deep it can penetrate into your body.
dia hitantsika eto hoe tena hatray zany alaliny ahafahany zany hazavana zany miditra ao amin'ny tenantsika
Up to 8 centimeters into your body.
any amin'ny 8 centimetatra miditra any amin'ny tenantsika any zany.
And the good news is that clothes can't stop it either. In fact,
Ari-
this study shows that it takes 13 layers of clothes to completely stop this type of light.
Any vaovao mahafaly dia zao na ny akanjo anaovantsika io ara dia tsy mahasaka anazy fikarohana natao dia misy hoe akanjo 3 mivalina zany vao mety mahasaka anazy.
The other thing that's very important about this type of light is that green trees and leaves highly reflect that type of light from the sun towards our body.
Ny zavatra vaovao mahafaly ihany koa dia ireo zavamaniry sy ny zavamaitso zany dia mitaratra ihany koa an'io fahazavana io ao amin'ny tenantsika.
This is an infrared photograph of the leaves and the trees. They look like they have snow on them. They're so bright.
Ary hitantsika zany fa ty sary eto ty dia sarina zavamaniry amin'ny infrarouge dia ohatran'ireny ranomandry reny fotsifotsy mitaratra.
So I want to explain again. Light comes from the sun, goes through your skin,
Dia ho azavaiko indray mandeha zany ny fahazavana avy amin'ny masoandro mandeha miditra ao amin'ny tenantsika amin'ny alalan'ny hoditra
goes into the cells,
dia miditra makao amin'ireo sela
where it charges up the batteries to make your cells work better.
dia io no misarge mamana an'ilay bateria zany mba hatonga antsika azoaina kokoa
And it reduces this oxidative stress.
ary io no mampidina mampiaina an'ilay stress oxydative izay miteraka an'ilay mety surchauffage teo.
And it makes your cells work like you were when you were very young.
Ary dia io zany no mahatonga ny selantsika hiasa tahaka ny hoe tena mbola tanora dia tanora isika.
Here are some studies that I talked to the professors in London who ran these studies and shows that this type of light causes the cells to act like they are working better.
Ity zany lay fikarohana izay natao tany Londres nataona professeur izay nitenenina teo hoe io karazana fahazavana io zany mahatonga an'ilay melatonine hiasa tsaratsara kokoa ao amin'ny tenantsika.
Notice on the left side, the red line shows the glucose being lower
Hitantsika ao amin'ny sary eo amin'ny ankavia zany fa miamidina ny glucose
who are getting red light stimulation in this study.
ary io zany lay maneho an'ilay stimulation na fanetanana azo tao anatin'ilay fikarohana izay natao.
That means less diabetes.
Zany hoe midina ny tahan'ny diabeta.
And on the right side of the screen, it shows that there's more carbon dioxide coming out, meaning more metabolism, which is good.
Ary hitantsika zany amin'ny ilany havanana satria misy metabolisme misimisy kokoa dia mety tsara koa zany ny toe-pahasalamana.
Here's another study when they took blood and they looked at the last 7 days before the blood was drawn.
Misy fikarohana anankiray indray zany rehefa nalaina ny raha nandritra ny herinandro mialohan'ny angalana azy.
At Oxford University, they found this.
Dia zao no hita tao amin'ny université any Oxford.
That the more sun per hour they had, the better blood test showed better insulin sensitivity and less triglycerides.
Arakaraky ny hafanany masoandro tana masoandro azo zany no ahitana ny fahatsapana ny insuline.
In Sweden,
Tany Suisse indray
they looked at women in
Sweden
Sweden.
indray
And those that had the least light exposure, the least sunlight exposure, had the highest mortality from all-cause deaths.
Reo tany Suède indray zany natao reo olona tsy dia mahazo tana masoandro firy dia miakatra ny tahany fahafatesan'izy ireo.
Whereas the ones that had the most sunlight on the right side had the lowest mortality from all causes.
Reo amin'ny ankavanana indray zany izay mahazo tana masoandro misimisy kokoa dia midina kokoa ny tahany fahafatesana vokatr'ireo aretina.
And this change was so great that the women who had the most sun exposure and smoked had the same mortality as those that had the least sun exposure and did not smoke.
Ary io zany dia milaza fa ireo zay mahazo bebe kokoa ny tana masoandro azon'izy ireo na dia mifoka ary izy ireo dia mbola ambony kokoa ny tahampahavelomana noho ireo zay tsy mahazo tana masoandro kanefa tsy mifoka.
In other words, avoiding the sun is just as dangerous as smoking.
Dikan'izany dia hoe ny tsy fananana ho an'io tana masoandro io zany dia mampidi-doza tahaka ny hoe mifoka sigara ianao.
People who live in green spaces.
reo zay mipetraka any amin'ny toerana maitso mavana.
And I know you have a lot of green spaces on
Ary
Madagascar.
fantatra eto Madagasikara fa betsaka zany toerana maitso mavana izany.
Lower diabetes,
Dia tokony midina zany ny diabeta.
lower cardiovascular mortality,
Miaina ihany koa ny tamin'ny fahafatesana vokatry ny aretim-po.
and lower mortality from any cause.
Ary miaina ny tamin'ny fahafatesana vokatry ireo aretina maro samihafa.
This has caused some dermatologists to rethink their advice about staying out of the sun.
Zay no mahatonga an'ireo mpandinika momba momba ny hoditra zany mba hieritreritra indray ny amin'ity vokatry ny tanamasoandro ity.
This made me also think during COVID.
Izany ihany koa no nahatonga handinika nandritra ny vanim-potoanan'ny Covid.
This is me taking care of patients in the ICU that were on ventilators during COVID a few years ago.
Hitanareo zany eto mikarakara olona marary anankiray voan'ny Covid zay efa mila an'ilay oxygène.
The reason why this was interesting to me is that the receptor for the virus causes the virus, when it hits the receptor, causes the oxidative stress in the body to go up.
Hita tao amin'izany ilay fandiniana natao zany fa le virus rehefa mikasika an'ilay vatatena dia miakatra kokoa ilay oxydation desantsika stress na teo iny.
It's like the COVID virus was causing the little engines in our cells to overheat.
Tahaka ny hoe ilay virus ny Covid iny zany dia niteraka ilay moteur kely tao amin'ny sela tao hafana be hisurchauffer indray ihany koa.
So, if you want to think about it this way, it's as if a car is running with its engine a little bit hot.
Ary hitantsika eo zany tahaka ny fiarakodia anankiray zay mihamafana ny moteur.
And he comes to a hill called COVID-19.
Dia tonga eo amin'ny havoana anankiray zay antsoina hoe Covid tamin'ny 19
COVID-19. And what happens is he starts to overheat.
Dia inona ny zavatra miseho arakaraky ny karany dia mihamafana be indray lay moteur.
And he stalls and stops.
Ary dia mijanona maty ho azy eo izy.
Whereas those cars that have a very cool engine can make it up the hill without a problem.
Ka ireo fiarakodia zay manana fomba fampangatsiahana moteur zany zay ihany no afaka miakatra n'ilay havoana ny Covid.
And so if we look at the diseases that were bad in COVID-19, we'll see it's the same diseases that we talked about at the beginning.
Ary raha mandinika ianareo reo aretina zay niseho nandritra ny Covid dia ireo ihany koa ny aretina miseho le efa niresantsika teo am-piandohana teo.
People who have diabetes, heart disease, obesity, dementia, these are all the same diseases.
Reo zany ny aretina mitovy ny aretim-po, ny diabeta, ny obésité na ny hatavezana be loatra mitovy zany lay aretina.
The other thing I found out very interesting is that people who had good vitamin D levels
Ny zavatra hitako ihany koa dia ireo olona zay manana tany vitamine D ambony
seem to do fine in COVID.
Dia ohatran'ny tsy dia naninona tamin'ny Covid.
But those that had very low vitamin D levels did not do well.
Fa reo zay ambany ny tany vitamine D tao aminy dia tena tsy salama mihitsy nandritra ny Covid.
So we all started to give our patients lots of vitamin D.
Ka izay zany dia lasa hoe nanome vitamine D ho an'ireo marary zay mikarakaraina.
But I don't think vitamin D was the key because our patients still didn't do well even when we gave them vitamin D.
Kanefa na dia nomena vitamine D reto marary reto dia tsy nietsara izy ireo.
It seems like that vitamin D is a marker of something else that is giving them success.
Ya, ka lay tsy hoe le vitamine D zany fa nisy zavatra hafa zay mitondra ny vitamine D zay mitondra n'ilay fahombiazana.
And I believe that thing
ninoko fa io zavatra io dia
is guess what?
Inona le izy?
Sunlight.
Tana
Exactly.
masoandro zay mihitsy.
So I started to look at studies that prove this.
Dia nijery ireo fandiniana maro isan-karazany zay nanamafy an'izany.
Here's a study looking at Europe showing that the time when COVID started to increase was related to the latitude of the country.
Dia hita eto zany ny firenena tany Eropa fa le Covid zany dia nisy fifandraisany tamin'ny avon'ilay toerana zay nisy an'izany ny firenena nisy an'izany.
And notice it started in Finland and it ended in Greece.
Zany hoe nanomboka tany Finland le izy dia nefara tany Grèce.
Here's another study that showed that the more sunlight there was, the lower the mortality from COVID-19.
Dia ity ihany koa ny fikarohana zay natao zany ireo zay mahazo tanamasoandro bebe kokoa dia vitsivitsy kokoa ny tany fahafatesana tamin'ny Covid.
They showed this in the United States and in England and again in Italy.
Hita zany tany États-Unis, hita tany Angleterre, ary hita ihany koa tany Italie.
And they said it was completely independent of vitamin D.
Ary ny fikarohana natao zany dia tsy nisy fiankinany tamin'ilay vitamine D fa le tanamasoandro.
Here is a paper that I published with another professor from Mexico showing that latitude predicted mortality.
Eto zany dia nisy fikarohana zay naparitaka niaraka tamina professeur anankiray tamin'ny Mexico zay milaza fa ny fahafatesana dia misy ifandraisany amin'ny ahavon'ny toerana misy an'ilay olona.
Then I saw this graph which completely blew my mind. It surprised me.
Nisy zavatra zay tena nanaitra mihitsy.
Notice, this is a graph of mortality in the United States.
Ito zany ny sarisary maneho ny tany fahafatesana tany États-Unis.
Notice, heart disease,
Maro io zany ny aretim-po hitantsika eo,
cancer,
ny homamiadana,
heart disease, lung disease, kidney disease, diabetes. All of these are all sorts
hitantsika eo
of
ny
deaths.
aretina, ny diabeta sy ny rein.
What do you notice?
Inona ny zavatra voamarika reo?
There is a seasonal pattern to all of these diseases.
Reo aretina rehetra reo dia miaka-midina ohatra ny tsofa ny sary zay miseho.
And all of them are at the highest about 1 to 3 weeks after the shortest day of the year. 1 to 3 weeks after the shortest day of the year.
Ya, dia hitantsika eo zany fa amin'ireo fotoana zay fohy kokoa ny andro amin'ilay toerana zany no tena miakatra ilay izy.
And they're all at the lowest about 1 to 3 weeks after the longest day of the year.
Ary tena midina be zany io ta io mandritra ny herinandro ray na roa amin'ny fotoana zay lava kokoa ny andro.
What does this tell you about the importance of sunlight?
Inona ny zavatra lazainy zany amintsika mahakasika ny mahazava-dehibe ny masoandro, tanamasoandro.
This is both infectious diseases and non-infectious
Ito
diseases.
dia aretin'ny mifindra na tsy mifindra ihany koa.
So you probably are asking, well, how does it look in the southern hemisphere where we are here in Madagascar?
Aozy ianareo hoe zany miseho any amin'ny ilabolatany atsimo anay eto Madagasikara, inona ny zavatra misy?
Because in America, the shortest day of the year is in December.
Satria any aminay États-Unis ny fohy indrindra dia amin'ny Desambra ny andro ny fohy indrindra.
But here, the shortest day of the year is when?
Fa aty vanim-potoana inona ny fohy indrindra ny andro?
It's in June.
Amin'ny volana Jona.
And if we look at Australia,
Raha mijery ny any Australie indray isika,
notice that they still have the peak of infectious diseases or influenza after the shortest day of the year, but here it's in June to July.
hitantsika zany fa any Australie dia misy ihany koa ilay aretina tahaka ny gripa sy ny sery ireny amin'ny vanim-potoana zay fohy ny andro.
This is the importance of sunlight.
Izany mazava-dehibe ny tanamasoandro.
Now you may ask, what about countries that are close to the equator?
Mety mametra-panontaniana ianao manahoana indray ny amin'ireo firenena zay manakaiky kokoa ny Équateur.
Here's Singapore. It's only 80 miles from the equator.
Hitantsika eto zany Singapour zay maily vitsivitsy fotsiny miala ny Équateur.
Notice there's no pattern. It just goes on and on without a pattern. Again, it's because of sunlight.
Hitantsika fa tsisy sary tena miseho fa vokatry ny tanamasoandro zany dia hita eo daholo ihany lay izy eo amin'ny tany fahafatesana.
What about Harvard? Harvard Kennedy School.
Manahoana indray ny ao amin'ny Harvard, sekoly ny Harvard Kennedy.
They looked at CDC data, solar radiation data, and their conclusion was CDC. It's the health agency in the United States.
Okay. Rehefa nijery zany ny atotanisa na ny atotan-kevitra vao amin'ny tompona andraikitra ny ara-pahasalamana États-Unis mahakasika ny taramasoandro.
They said, quote, we find that sunlight strongly protects against getting
Dia zao
influenza.
ny zavatra nylazainy hoe hitanay fa ny tanamasoandro dia tena miaro tanteraka, miaro tokoa ny aretina gripa sy ny sery.
We're going to wrap up shortly here, but for me, when I saw this, I needed a randomized placebo-controlled trial.
Ya, mety amarana antsika rehefa kelikely eo fa za zany rehefa mijery an'izany zavatra rehetra zany dia zao ny zavatra azo lazaina.
So in Brazil, they did that to COVID patients admitted to the hospital.
Rehefa tany Brésil nataon'izy ireo nentina atao amin'ny hôpitaly marary ny Covid.
They made this vest and put it on their patients.
Dia nampanaoviny an'ity ohatrany akanjo vesta ity ny marary.
They had little light bulbs that gave off energy in the infrared spectrum.
Ary dia nisy an'ity sary kely infrarouge ity zany zay manome hery ny vatany.
And watched what happened.
Dia jereo ny zavatra zay niseho hoe
The patients could breathe better, faster, have better oxygen, and they were discharged.
afaka niaina tsara sy nahazo oksizenina tsara lay marary natao an'izay ary dia nivoaka ny hôpitaly.
4 days faster.
Efatrandro haingana kokoa zany ny olona zay natao an'izay dia sitrana.
How many people want to stay in the hospital 4 days shorter?
Izy amintsika no te hijanona any amin'ny hôpitaly hoe mba efatrandro latsaka ny hijanonana any amin'ny hôpitaly zany hoe kely kokoa ny andro hijanonana any amin'ny hôpitaly.
So when I started to see my patients in the hospital with COVID,
Rehefa nijery an'ireo marary ny Covid atao amin'ny hôpitaly zany
I started to get them outside.
dia netiko voaka tany ivelany izy ireo.
This gentleman here,
Ity lehilahy zay hitanareo eto ity
they called me down from the ICU to come and put him on a ventilator.
dia niala tany amin'ny urgence izy zany le tena intensive reny fiarakarana efa mila oxygène.
He was on 100% oxygen, 35 liters a minute.
Dia mila tena efa BDB ny tany oxygène ilainy ao anatin'ny minitra.
We put a bunch of oxygen tanks together and we got him in a wheelchair and we took him outside into the
Dia
sun.
natambatra ny boatina oxygène zay ilainy dia nentina nivoaka tany atokotany izy.
Next day, he was down to 15 liters.
Ary ny andro manaraka an'iny dia efa nidina 5 litatra ny oxygène ilainy.
Then down to 12.
Dia aveo lasa 12.
Then down to 5.
Dia lasa 10.
In 5 days, he was discharged without any oxygen.
Ary tao anatin'ny 10 andro dia efa afaka mivoaka ny hôpitaly izy.
People, I thought I had discovered a new cure for COVID.
Io zany dia ohatrany nahita hoe fanafody vaovao nitsabona ny Covid.
But then I remembered
Kanefa tsaroko
there is nothing new under the sun.
fa tsisy zava-baovao eto ambanin'ny masoandro.
Florence Nightingale,
Florence Nightingale,
the founder of modern nursing,
zay anisan'ny nanorona zany
said this:
nilazany zao zavatra zao.
Of all the remedies I have used or seen in use, I can find but one thing that I can call remedial for the whole disease, and that is a profuse supply of fresh air.
Nightingale zany anisan'ny namorona an'ireny infirmier reny dia zao no lazainy ny amin'ireo fanafody rehetra zay nampiasaiko sy hitako nampiasaina dia zavatra ray ihany no hitako fa azo atao ny mitsabo an'ireo aretina rehetra ary zany dia ny fananana rivotra madio ampy.
Second only to fresh air, however, I should be inclined to rank light in importance for the sick. Direct sunlight, not only daylight, is necessary for a speedy recovery.
Ary ny faharoa manarakaraka ny rivotra madio zany zay dia omeko ny fahazavana ny laharana manaraka eo mba tena ilain'ny marary ireo. Zany hoe ny vantana avy amin'ny tanamasoandro mivantana tsy hoe mandritra ny andro ihany fa ilaina izany ho amin'ny fahasalamana na ny fiverenany toe-pahasalamana miatsara aingana kokoa.
Another health reformer in the 1800s, a lady by the name of Ellen G. White.
Nisy mpanavao ara-pahasalamana zay manana ny anarana hoe Ellen White ihany koa tamin'ny taona 1770 dia nilaza manao hoe
She said, "Go out into the light and warmth of the glorious sun, you pale and sickly ones, and share with vegetation its life-giving, health-dealing power."
Teny izy manao hoe mandehana mivoaka eny amin'ny fahazavana sy ny hafanan'ny masoandro be voninahitra. Ianao zay marary io dia rehefa mifandray amin'ny zavaboary sy ny hery zay hoentiny ianao dia manana hery mitondra fahasalamana izany.
And in fact, this is what used to happen over 100 years ago in the West.
Tany amin'ny faritra andrefana dia tia ny zavatra niseho nandritra ny 100 taonany.
We have forgotten the power of the sun.
Adinontsika ny herin'ny masoandro.
And I don't want you to forget about it.
Ary tsy tiako raha ho adinonareo koa ny mahakasika an'izany herin'ny masoandro izany.
When we are sick, we tend to go inside and be in bed and not come outside.
Rehefa marary sika dia matetika tiatsika ny mijanona ao am-pandriana fa tsy mivoaka ny ivelany.
This is the worst thing.
Itena ny zavatra ratsy indrindra izany.
Haven't you noticed when your dog or your cat is sick, what do?
Mba fantatrareo ve rehefa marary ny alika sy ny sakanareo inona ny ataony?
They go out into the sun.
mandeha mivoaka amin'ny tanin'andro izy ireo.
This is a slide we're wrapping up here of a young boy who was dying in the hospital.
Ty dia sary maneho ny zazalahy anankiray izay efa mila ho faty tao amin'ny hôpitaly.
What you see here on the left side of the screen is how he looked before he went outside.
Hitanareo amin'ny ankavia eto zany ny toerana sy ny toetrany melohany nahatonga azy teny amin'ny masoandro.
And the white lungs show infection that is going to kill him.
Ary ny tao amin'ny tratrany tao zany misy zavatra fotsifotsy maneho fa ho faty izy.
The doctors threw up their hands. They had nothing else they could do for him.
Dia nanipigao ny dokotera hoe tsisy ninninina azonay atao tsony.
And he was going to die. He had a request to go outside one last time.
Dia efa ho faty zany izy fanangataka izy mba hoentina mivoaka faraparany any ivelany.
And as he went outside, he started to feel better.
Ary rehefa nivoaka tany ivelany izy tany antokotany dia natsiaro ny nahazo ainy.
After 5 days, he was so much better that the doctors repeated the CAT scan.
Ary tao anatin'ny 5 andro zany dia tena niatsara tanteraka izy ary nijereny dokotera akaiky.
And notice what they found.
Ary mba fantatrareo ve ny zavatra hitan'izy ireo?
His mucor, this is a flesh-eating fungus, had completely disappeared.
Dia tena niala tanteraka zany ilay aretina nisy azy izay nihinana ny nofony.
He is still alive to this very day.
Ary amin'izao andro itenenantsika zao dia mbola velona io.
Because he wanted to go outside in the sun.
Satria naniry ny andeha hivoaka ny ivelany hitanin'andro izy.
This is what is happening to the amount of time that we're spending outside in the last few years in the United States.
Io zany ny zavatra miseho ho an'ireo izay mandany andro manokana fotoana any États-Unis mandeha tanin'andro.
Don't copy us.
Aza izay no alaina tahaka.
I tell you that the sun has power to heal.
Fa efa niresahako anareo fa ny masoandro dia manana hery manasitrana.
The enemy of longevity is chronic disease.
Ny fahavalo ny fahavelomana ela dia ireo aretina pahazo.
If you have chronic disease or you know somebody that does,
raha ohatra malala olona manana an'izany aretina zany ianao na ianao tratran'izany
I want you to look chronic disease in the eyes
dia tiako raha jerenareo atrehanareo tsara mihitsy io aretina io
and tell it,
ary lazao amin'io aretina io manao hoe
let's take this fight outside.
andao any ivelantsika no hiady amin'ity aretina ity.
Thank you very much.
Misaotra betsaka tompoko.
Jona no anohy ny fanazavana ny amin'ny hoe ny tsiambaratelo ny mahaela velona. Izy indray dia manampahaizana manokana eo amin'ny fitsaboana ny homamiadana natratra ny faratampony indrindra ao amin'ny sekoly atao hoe malaza indrindra no nivoany nazahoana n'izany fandratona fahalalana izany. Ko dia ometsika azy ny fitenenana avy hatrany azahoany manohy ny amin'ny hoe inona ny tokony atao mba haela velona.
Good evening, everyone.
Mirabatsika amin'ny ity hariva ity manaona daholo tsika rehetra.
Thank you to Professor Roger Schwelt for sharing that wonderful message.
Misaotra ny professeur sika izay nizarany zany hafatra mahafinaritra izany.
I look up to him very much, and I don't look forward to speaking after him.
Dia nijery azy nanaraka tsara ary moa hoe za ve zany niteny ao aoriana amin'ny professeur.
But it's an honor for me, my family, and our entire group to be here in Madagascar.
Fa tombontsoa sy ny ankonako sy ny ekipa ray manontolo ny tonga eto Madagasikara.
I am a cancer doctor, and so cancer is what I deal with on a daily basis, but my research interest is in nutrition.
Izaho dia mpitsabo ny homamiatana ary zany no hitako isan'andro kanefa ny zavatra izay tena tiako ny karohana fatratra dia ny makasika ny fahasalamana vokatry ny zavatra hohanina ny pahay ny momba ny ara-tsakafo azany.
Food is very essential for many aspects of health, so I want to spend some time tonight talking about the foods that we eat.
Tiako zany resaka mandritra ny fotoana vitsivitsy makasika ny sakafo hohanina satria tena zava-dehibe amin'ny fahasalamana io sakafo io.
The average lifespan of all the cells in our bodies is 7 to 10 years, which means that every 10 years, you become a completely different person.
Ny salanisan'ny fahaveloman'ny selantsika rehetra zany dia eo amin'ny tenantsika dia mifitoka hatramin'ny 10 taona eo. Dikan'izany dia hoe isaky ny 10 taona zany dia miova tanteraka isika lasa olona hafa mihitsy.
So how does your body create all of those cells all over again every 10 years?
Ka ahoana zany ny atonga an'ireo sela rehetra ireo mba ho amboarina sy ho ariana indray isaky ny 10 taona?
Based on what you eat.
Dia mifototra amin'ireo zavatra zay hoantsika.
So you are literally what you eat.
Koa isika ireo zany arabaky teny fa zay hoantsika maneho ny maha-izy atsika.
And because your food provides your body with all the building blocks necessary to rebuild your body, it plays a very important role in health.
Satria tena manana anjara toerana lehibe zany ny lafiny ara-tsakafo satria io ny ohatran'ny hoe zavatra zay mametraka na anorenana ny ty vatatenantsika ity.
These are the top 10 causes of death in Madagascar according to the World Health Organization.
Araka ny voalazan'ny OMS zany dia ireo ny zavatra telo zay miteraka ny fahafatesana eto Madagasikara, ny telo voalohany.
And it's interesting that 3 of the top 10 causes of death in this country are very much linked to food.
Ary ny mahaliana dia zao ny telo amin'ireo zavatra voalohany miteraka fahafatesana eto Madagasikara dia misy fandraisany betsaka amin'ny sakafo.
Including the number 1 cause of death in this country, which is stroke.
Ary voalohany amin'izany ilay fatapahany lalan-drà zay miteraka ny fahafatesana voalohany eto Madagasikara.
So I think this discussion tonight is very relevant for everyone here today.
Koa tena ilaitsika ny fanehoana amin'ity hariva ity.
If you were a scientist trying to figure out what is the ideal diet for a human being to eat, how would you find out?
Ahoana moa nahitanao raha ianao zany no anisan'ny hoe mpikaroka ara-siantifika hoe inona no sakafo mahasalama indrindra tokony hohanina?
Well, one good approach might be to study the healthiest and longest living people on the planet.
Ny zavatra voalohany zay azo atao dia mandinika an'ireo zavatra hohanin'ireo olona zay tena salama sy ela velona indrindra teto amin'ny planeta tany.
So there was a blue zone study that did just that.
Ary nisy zany ilay faritra manga zay nanao an'izany fandinihana fikarohana izany.
And they found that there were 5 locations on Earth where people lived longer than any other place.
Dia nahita izy ireo fa misy faritra 5 manerana an'izao tontolo zao zay ela velona kokoa ny olona zay mipetraka amin'ireo toerana faritra 5 manga ireo.
These locations included Okinawa, Japan.
Any Japan?
Okinawa.
Okinawa any Japan.
Okay. Costa Rica, it was Ikaria, Greece.
Any Greece. Greece. Okay.
Sardinia, Italy.
Dan Italy.
Nicoya, Costa Rica.
Dan Costa Rica, Nicoya.
And Loma Linda, California.
Ary Loma Linda in California.
And Loma Linda is where the majority of our doctors are from.
Ary Loma Linda zany toerana zay niavin'ny akamaroany reto dokotera ireto.
So the researchers behind this Blue Zone study looked at all 5 of these locations to figure out why were more people living to be over 100 years old in these 5 locations than any other place in the planet.
Ka ny fikarohana zay natao tamin'ity faritra manga ity zany dia hoe nahoana ireo olona amin'ireo faritra ireo no ela velona kokoa.
And they studied many factors.
Ary betsaka ny zavatra zay nokarohana sy nodinihana tamin'izany.
But when they looked at the diet, they found that all 5 of these locations, the people ate a predominantly plant-based diet.
Fa ny zavatra zay hitan'izy ireo zany ny akamaroan'ireo faritra ireo ny sakafo hohaniny dia sakafo mifototra amin'ny zavamaniry.
So, although there's more to health than just food, it was interesting that the kind of foods that the people ate were similar in that they were mainly plants.
Ka zava-dehibe zany tsy hoe mihinana ny sakafo fotsiny fa hoe inona le karazan-tsakafo hohanina dia ny sakafo mifototra amin'ny zavamaniry.
So it seems the answer to the question of what is the healthiest diet is a whole food, plant-based diet.
ka ny valiny tsotra ny amin'ilay fanontaniana hoe inona sakafo mahaela velona indrindra zany dia ny sakafo idéaly zany dia ny sakafo mifototra amin'ny zava-maniry.
But even if we didn't have this study, we would have clues as to what is the ideal diet.
Kanefa na dia tsy nahita an'izay fikarohana zay ary sika dia mety tokony hafantatra avy hatrany hoe inona no sakafo zay mahaela velona.
You see, it seems that we are designed to eat plants.
Raha diniana ny tenantsika zany dia ohatrany hoe namboarina olona hihinana zava-maniry.
If you look at the shape of our teeth look like plant-eating animal teeth, not meat-eating animal teeth.
Raha jerena zany ny firafitry ny nifintsika dia raha miohatra amin'ireo biby hafa dia firafitry ny nify zay mihinana zava-maniry. Ampitahaina amin'ireo zay mihinana nofim-biby.
The length of our intestines resembles more a plant-eating animal than a meat-eating animal.
Ary ny alavan'ny nitsinaitsika dia mitovy amin'ireo zay mihinana zava-maniry fa tsy mihinana nofin-javatra.
The way that our bodies handle cholesterol and sodium also resembles a plant-eating animal, not a meat-eating animal.
Na ny fomba firafitry ny tenantsika raha zany dia makany amin'izay hoe mihinana zava-maniry izay.
So it seems like everything about how we are designed has been designed to live on plants, not animals.
Totrany hoe ny firafitry ny tena sy nanamboarana antsika zany dia makany amin'izay hoe mihinana zava-maniry fa tsy mihinana biby.
Well, this is what the Bible teaches.
Izao ny zavatra zay ampianarin'ny Baiboly atsika.
You see, when God first made Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden,
rehefa nahary any Adama sy Eva Andriamanitra tao amin'ny sany Edena,
what kind of diet did he give them?
dia inona moa ny sakafo zay nomena azy ireo?
He gave them a plant-based diet.
Zany hoe sakafo mifototra amin'ny zava-maniry no nomena azy.
In Genesis 2, verses 8 and 9,
Ao amin'ny Genesis toko faharoa ny andinin'ny fahavalo sy fahasivy,
it says, "The Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground the Lord God made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food."
Ary Jehovah Andriamanitra nanao sata ao Edena tany atsinanana ka napetrany tao raha lehilahy zay noforoniny. Ary nampaniriany Jehovah Andriamanitra tao amin'ny tany ny hazo rehetra zay mateza sady tsara ho fihinana, ary ny hazo naina teo afovoany sy ny hazo fahalalana ny tsara sy ny ratsy.
You see, we didn't start eating animals until after sin entered the world.
Taoriny nidiran'ny fahotana zany vao nanomboka ny hihinana nofim-biby sika ny hihinana biby.
If Adam and Eve never sinned, they would have been vegetarians for their whole life.
Raha toa ka tsy nanota zany Adama sy Eva dia tsy nihinana fa tsy zava-maniry tsika nandritry ny androm-piainantsika.
And all their families too.
Ary ny fianakaviany ihany koa, fianakaviany Adama sy Eva.
Now, why are plants so good for you?
Nahoana moa no tena tsara ho atsika zany ny fihinanana zava-maniry?
The thing that makes plants so healthy for you is that they contain what we call phytochemicals.
Ny tena mahatonga ny zava-maniry ho tsara ho amin'ny fahasalamantsika dia misy an'ilay antsoina hoe phytochimique.
Phytochemicals is a fancy name for plant chemicals.
Zany hoe avany amin'ny zava-maniry zany ny azonan'io phytochimique io.
They're only found in plants.
Ary any amin'ny zava-maniry ihany no ahitana azy.
And they help boost the immune system, fight disease, and fight cancer.
Ary io zany mampitombo ny hery fiarovana ao anatintsika sy ny ahafahantsika miady amin'ny aretina.
These phytochemicals also give plants their colors.
Io singa io ihany koa zany manome ny lokony ny zava-maniry.
So the greens, yellows, reds that you see in plant foods, these are from phytochemicals.
Reo loko hitanareo zany maitso, mena ao amin'ny zava-maniry dia avy amin'io phytochimique io no ny aviny.
So the more colorful your plant-based diet, the more healthy you will be because you're eating a greater variety of phytochemicals.
Ka raha toa zany ka tena maro loko ny sakafo hoantsika isan-karazany lokony dia betsaka ihany koa i phytochimique zay manatsara ny toe-pahasalamantsika io.
So you don't want your plant-based diet to look like this, where it's all whites and yellows and browns.
ka aoka zany ny sakafo mifototra amin'ny zava-maniry hoantsika tsy ohatra ny ho hitantsika ao amin'ny sary hoe fotsy be mavo be fotsiny fa misy loko isan-karazany.
I know in this country, rice is a big deal.
Fantatro fa amin'ity fireneny ity dia tena zava-dehibe mihitsy ny vary.
And rice is fine, but if you eat a lot of rice and you don't add other colorful plants to your meal,
Tena tsara ny vary kanefa raha tsy mihinana afa-tsy vary ianao fa tsy misy zavatra hafa fangaronao miaraka aminy izay maro loko,
it can be just as unhealthy as a meat diet.
dia tahaka ny hoe sakafo tsy tomombana ihany zany eo amin'ny lafiny ara-pahasalamana.
White rice, white bread, and white pasta all increase your blood sugar very much.
Satria ny vary fotsy ny paty fotsifotsy reny dia mampiakatra ny tosidra.
And if you eat them without eating colorful plants that contain lots of fiber, then you will run the risk of developing diseases like diabetes.
Ka raha ohatra reny ihany no hoaninareo fa tsy misy sakafo hafa maro loko dia mety mampitombo ny aretina tahaka ny diabeta ao amin'ny vatatenanareo zany.
So if possible, eat brown rice, not white rice.
Ka raha azo atao zany dia tsy le vary fotsy be iny fa vary gasy vary mena no hoanina.
Eat wheat bread instead of white bread.
Ary aleo zany mihinana mofo vokatry ny varim-bazaha ihany koa zany complet.
And eat pasta based on wheat or brown rice.
Ary raha rehefa mihinana paty reny tsika dia zavatra natao tamin'ny farine complet zany ny anaovana azy.
Now, let me unpack the definition of a whole food plant-based diet.
Mamela anazava misimisy kokoa inona moa zany ity hoe sakafo mifototra amin'ny zava-maniry tena amin'ny fahafenony ity.
Because it's possible to eat a plant-based diet and be very unhealthy.
Satria tena mety miseho tokoa ny hoe tsy mihinana afa-tsy zava-maniry ianao kanefa tsy salama mihitsy.
So let's start with plant-based. Plant-based, I tell people, means nothing that had a mother. Plant-based means nothing that had a mother. You're eating nothing that had a mother.
Raha ohatra zany hoe lay mihinana afa-tsy zava-maniry dia tahaka ny hoe tsy manana reny ianao.
So
ny atao hoe thank you. Raha mafaritana zany le hoe inona ny atao hoe zava-maniry dia ny zavatra rehetra tsy manana reny.
because some of my patients, when I tell them eat plant-based, they'll say, okay, I'll eat fish.
Dia misy miteny hoe ay rehefa hoe tsy mihinana afa-tsy zava-maniry fa za zany mihinana trondro.
So I asked them, did fish have mothers?
Dia manontany azy hoe manana reny ve ny trondro?
And the answer is yes.
Dia ny valiny dia eny.
So it's not a plant.
No zany tsy zava-maniry zany raha vao manana reny.
So nothing that had a mother, that's what a plant-based diet is.
Ny zavatra manana reny rehetra zany dia tsy ao anatiny ity hoe sakafo mifototra amin'ny zava-maniry ity.
However, people think, okay, as long as I don't eat meat, it must be healthy for me, and that's wrong.
Mety diso zany hoe rehefa tsy mihinana mofokena fotsiny dia efa ampy zay diso zany.
So that's where a whole food diet comes in.
Zay zany ny mahakasika an'ity hoe sakafo mifototra amin'ny zava-maniry amin'ny fahafenony.
What is a whole food?
Inona indray ary ilay atao hoe sakafo feno.
A whole food is something that has been minimally processed.
Ny atao hoe sakafo feno zany na complet dia ilay tsy nahodina kely arak'izay azo atao zany nanodina anazy na tsy nahodina mihitsy, tsy namboarina.
It is the the vegetable or fruit that has been processed as little as possible.
Zany hoe kely arak'izay azo atao nanodinana n'io zava-maniry io.
If you buy something that comes in a bag or a can or a box and it has lots of ingredients in the back, that means it's been processed.
Raha toa ianao mividy zava-maniry zany ka efa ny anaty boaty le izy na ny anaty harona kely dia efa misy zavatra nahodina zany tamin'izy iny.
If you look at something and you're not sure what kind of plant it came from, that means it's been processed.
Raha ohatra zany ka misy zavatra jerenao ka tsy fantatra hoe avaiza tamin'ny zava-maniry moa ity dia efa nahodina nihodina zany io zavatra io.
So if you look at these four pictures, can you pick out what represents a whole food plant-based diet and what doesn't?
Raha mijery an'io sary io nareo dia fantatrareo hoe iza no sakafo tena feno ary iza kosa ny efa nahodina.
So you can see the things on the left
Dia hitanareo zany fa leo ankavia
are not whole food and plant-based.
dia fa tsy sakafo feno intsony a tsy sakafo mifototra araka ny zava-maniry feno intsony.
Remember, the whole foods are found usually on the periphery of the grocery store, not the aisles. They're found on the edges of the grocery store when you go into a grocery store.
Rehefa makany amin'ny toeram-pivarotanareo zany dia hita eo amin'ny étalage eo reo sakafo feno ireo.
When you eat a whole food plant-based diet, it's important to eat a wide variety of foods.
Ary rehefa mihinana ny sakafo feno io zany dia ilaina ihany koa mihinana karazany maro samihafa.
And I know in Madagascar, you have access to a lot of wonderful fruits and vegetables.
Ary fantatra eto Madagasikara fa manana karazana zava-maniry, karazana légumes be dia be ianareo.
But do the best you can with what you have.
Kanefa ataovy izay azonareo atao amin'izay anananareo.
A big bowl of white rice and one vegetable is not a healthy diet.
Ny sakafo vary fotsy ray vilia be dia tsy tena sakafo mahasalama.
You want to eat the rainbow.
Fa tokony mihinana tahaka ny lokon'ny havana isika.
Make sure there are many different colors represented.
Aka azo antoka zany fa misy karazana loko maro eo amin'ny sakafo eo.
And a wide variety of plant foods.
Ary misy karazana zava-maniry any isan-karazany koa ny sakafo hohanina.
Now, if you do this, what's going to happen?
Inona ny zavatra miseho rehefa manao an'izany isika?
Well, the benefit is that you're going to have less heart disease.
Ny tombontsoa azo dia mihena ny areti-po mety azo anao.
And assuming you don't eat too much, you're going to lose weight.
Ary rehefa tsy dia mihinana firy ianao dia mihena ihany koa zany lanjanao.
Your blood pressure will go down.
Ny midina ny tosi-dra.
Your cholesterol will go down.
Midina ihany koa ny cholesterol.
And your risk of cancer will go down.
Dia hidina ihany koa zany ny mety avoan'ny kanseranao.
Those are the only side effects.
Reo zany no side effects.
Those are the only side effects of a plant-based diet.
Zay zany ny zavatra miseho amin'ity sakafo miolona amin'ny zava-maniry ity.
This is a study that my colleagues and I published when I was at the Mayo Clinic.
Nisy zavatra zay naparitaka zany tamin'ny fikarohana natao rehefa tao amin'ny klinika anankiray eo.
And it talks about, we looked at the effect of plant and animal-based foods on prostate cancer risk.
Hita eo zany ny vokatra ateraky ny finanana zava-maniry na finanana biby ao amin'ny homamiadan'ny prostate.
So we wanted to know, if you eat a lot of plants, does that make your risk of getting prostate cancer different than if you ate a lot of animal-based foods?
Kia zany hoe manahoana ny riska mety avoan'ny homamiadana anao raha mihinana zava-maniry fotsiny ianao na mihinana nofom-biby ihany koa ianao.
We looked at all the evidence in the literature.
Dia nijerena ihany koa zany ireo zavatra rehetra zay voakasika ao anatin'izay.
And in this graph, the numbers in blue, the blue boxes represent studies that show a decreased risk of prostate cancer.
Hitatsika amin'ny tableau zany fa le amin'le mangamanga maneho ny fidinany tahan'ilay homamiadana, riska mety avoan'ny homamiadana.
The purple represents no change in risk.
Ary ny volomparasy dia tsy misy ny riska.
And orange means a possible increased risk of prostate cancer.
Ary le orange dia midika hoe mety hitombo kokoa ny riska avoan'ny homamiadana anao.
So for plant-based diets here, we can see a lot of blues and purples.
Hitatsika zany fa betsaka ny manga sy ny volomparasy amin'ireo sakafo fototra amin'ny zava-maniry zay hohanina.
You can see there is one orange box for fresh tomatoes.
Hitatsika fa misy orange kely zany eo amin'ny voatabia.
And some researchers thought that fresh tomatoes might increase your risk of prostate cancer.
Dika zany zay fa mety mampitombo ny avoan'ny homamiadana ny voatabia. Fresh tomato.
But this turned out to be false.
Kanefa dia diso zany.
This turned out, it was false, that fresh tomatoes do not cause prostate cancer.
Diso zany zavatra zany fa tsy miteraka homamiadana ny finanana voatabia frais.
But we included that here anyway for completeness sake.
Naseho ihany le izy amin'ilay fikarohana zay natao.
So the summary is that if you eat plants, it can only help you by lowering your risk of prostate cancer.
Zavatra marina zany dia hoe rehefa mihinana zavatra maniry ianao dia mihena kokoa ny tany mety avoan'ny homamiadana anao.
Now look at the same graph for animal-based foods.
Jereo indray io tableau io ny amin'ny sakafo biby, nofom-biby.
You can
na
see
tsy zava-maniry.
you can see all the orange on this graph.
Hitanareo fa misy orange dolidoly eo amin'ilay sary.
There are a lot of studies that show that if you eat animal-based foods, especially milk and dairy products, your risk of prostate cancer will increase.
Dia hita zany fa rehefa mihinana sakafo nofim-biby ianao ary ao anatin'izay ihany koa ny ronono dia mitombo ny tahan'ny homamiadana mety azo anao.
And it makes sense, especially for milk, because the purpose of cow milk is to turn a little cow into a big cow as fast as possible.
Hitanareo fa marina ihany koa zay amin'ny rononon'omby satria inona moa ny ilana ny rononon'omby anie dia ny ampangeza n'ilay zanak'omby kely zay minono amin'iny.
We are not cows, we're humans.
Isika nefa tsy zanak'omby fa olombelona.
And when we drink cow milk,
Rehefa misotro an'iny rononon'omby iny zany isika,
we are sending all of these cow growth signals into our body.
dia miparitaka ao amin'ny vatantenantsika eo daholo ireo singa zay ao amin'ny rononon'omby.
And it's telling all these cells in our body to grow as fast as a cow.
Dia miteny amin'ireo sela rehetra ao amin'ny vatantsika zany hoe aoka hitombo haingana tahaka ny zanak'omby ianao.
Can you see why it might be linked to increased cancer?
Ary izay no mahatonga hoe mampitombo ny tany avoan'ny kanseranao ihany koa zany zay rononon'omby zay.
This was a study on Adventists,
Ity dia nisy fikarohana natao teo amin'ny adventiste
because there are a lot of vegetarians among Adventists.
satria betsaka ireo tsy mihinana fa tsy zava-maniry ao amin'ny adventiste.
However, not all Adventists are strict vegetarians.
Kanefa tsy ny adventiste rehetra kory no tena hoe végétarien tanteraka.
There are some Adventists who eat a lot of meat.
Misy ny adventiste zay mihinan-kena be.
There are Adventists who are mostly vegetarian, but they eat some meat.
Misy ny adventiste zay fa kely sisa teo végétarien fa mbola mihinan-kena ihany.
There are Adventists who eat no meat, but they eat eggs and they drink milk.
Misy adventiste zay tsy mihinan-kena fa mihinana atody misotro ronono.
There are Adventists who eat mostly plants, but they eat fish too.
Misy ihany koa ny adventiste zay mihinana ny akamaroan'ny sakafo zava-maniry fa mihinana trondro ihany koa izy.
And there are Adventists who eat no meat, no fish, no milk, and no dairy.
Misy ndray ny adventiste tsy mihinana trondro, tsy mihinana atody, tsy mihinana ronono, zava-maniry ihany.
So this study looked at all of those different Adventists
Ka ity fikarohana ity zany dia nijery an'ireo karazana adventiste maro ireo.
to see if there's a difference in the amount of cancer that they developed.
Zay mba ahitana hoe misy fahasamihafana ve ny tahan'ny homamiadana zay mety mirongatra.
And what they found is that even though all of these Adventists were very healthy,
Dia ny zavatra hita zany na dia salama raha ny akamaroan'ireo adventiste ireo
the group that had the lowest chance of developing cancer were the Adventists who were completely vegan, where they didn't eat any meat, any fish, any dairy, any eggs.
dia hita fa ireo zay tsy mihinana fa tsy zava-maniry ihany no tena ambany dia ambany zany ny tahany azon'ny homamiadana. Tsy mihinana fa tsy zava-maniry, tsy mihinana ronono, tsy mihinana atody fa zava-maniry ihany.
So again, it's showing that any kind of animal protein in the body, any kind of animal product in the body is harmful.
Dikan'izany dia ireo zavatra zay avy amin'ny biby ao amin'ny tenantsika eo zany dia mety miteraka voka-dratsy ao amin'ny vatantsika.
Now, maybe you're thinking, there's no way I can do that.
Mety mieritreritra ianao hoe tsisy azoko atao ane.
And so maybe you're thinking, this doesn't apply to me because I can't give up all my meat.
Mety miteny ihany koa ianao hoe angamba tsy za no tiana ho resahana amin'izany satria tsy afaka miala amin'ity hena ity mihitsy aho.
And I know for some people, it's hard to find good quality plant-based foods.
Ary fantatra ihany koa fa maro ny olona zay tsy mahita ilay tena karazany zava-maniry tsara ho amin'ny fahasalamana.
So they still have to rely on meat to get all their nutrition.
Ka mba azony manana ireo zavatra ilaina amin'ny sakafo zany dia tsy maintsy mbola mihinana hena izy.
I don't want you to lose hope.
Tiako nefa raha tsy kivy na diso fanantenana ianareo.
Avoid the all or nothing thinking, that if I can't switch all over, then nothing is going to work. Don't think that way.
Aza mieritreritra hoe rehefa tsy tena avy dia makary amin'iny ilany iny zany dia tsisy ninina andeha mihitsy. Aza zay zany ny atao an-tsaina hoe rehefa tsy manao an'iny avy zany dia tsy salama mihitsy.
Everyone is at a different place in the spectrum of how much animal foods and plant foods they eat.
Satria isika rehetra dia amin'ny toerana samihafa ny amin'ny hoe takiny ahoana ny tahany zava-maniry na ny biby zay tokony zay hohaniny.
if you can increase any amount of plant-based foods that you're eating, it will improve your health.
raha tokazonao atao zany mampitombo ny zava-maniry hohaninao a dia mitombo ihany koa ny fahasalamanao.
So rather than thinking, oh, Dr. Shin took away everything I love eating, say, focus more on eating more plants.
Aza mieritreritra zany hoe zay zavatra tiako hohanina rehetra dia nasain'ny profesera najanona avokoa. Aza zay ny eritreretina fa hoe aoka ho ampitomboko ny fihinanana zava-maniry.
When I talk to my cancer patients, I tell them this analogy.
Rehefa miresaka amin'ireo marary ny homamiadana tsaboky a dia izao ny tantara izay resahako amin'izy ireo.
Imagine you're very thirsty.
Eritrereto hoe tena mangetaheta ianareo.
And I have this 5-gallon jug of water.
Dia manana an'ity rano ao anaty tavoahangy lehibe ity aho.
And you ask me for a drink.
Dia mangataka rano amiko ianao hosotroana.
Before I give you a drink, I put 1 drop of cyanide in there, which is a deadly poison.
Dia mialohan'ny hanomezako rano anareo a dia asiako gotina poizina kely ao anatin'le rano.
Just 1 drop.
Gota ray fotsiny.
And I mix it all around.
Dia afangaroko tsara le izy a.
And I pour a glass.
Dia araraka ao anaty vera le izy a.
And I give it to you.
Dia atolotro anareo.
How many of you would drink it?
Izy aminareo no isotra an'io rano io.
Oh, no one raises their hands, but if you were really thirsty
Tsy misy manangan-tanana nefa ianareo anie tena mangetahety.
and the cyanide tasted really good,
Ary
if the poison tasted good,
mety tsara tsiro le pozina zay natao tao.
many of you would probably drink it.
Mety misy maro amintsika ny isotro.
Many of them would probably drink it.
Mety misy amintsika maro amintsika ny isotro. This poison.
No.
You say what is the name?
Cyanide.
Sianita, le pozina zany nasiana sianita le izy. Maro amintsika ve ny isotro an'le rano?
Now, if you drank that cup, do you think it would kill you?
Raha ohatra ka misotro an'iny rano ray verina nareo, mety hahafaty anareo ve iny?
At that low concentration, it'll just probably clean your teeth.
Amin'le satria kely dia kely any an-tan'le izy a, mety nifinareo fotsiny madilo kely amin'le izy.
Well, what if I put 2 drops?
Fa raha ohatra indray ataoko goty anankiroa ao anatin'ilay rano,
Would it kill you?
mety hamono anareo ve raha asiana sianita 2 goty ao anatin'io rano be dia be io?
Probably not.
Mety tsy hahafaty.
What about 3 drops?
Raha ataontsika hoe 3 goty,
4 drops?
4.
I think we all agree that at some point, the poison is going to harm you.
Mino ahy fa isika rehetra dia manaiky fa misy fatra amin'ny toerana anankiray zay tena mahafaty io pozina io.
And it's all dose dependent, how much you put in there.
Ary ny dozin'ilay izy zany dia miankina amin'ilay hoe impiry no goty nataonao tao anatin'ilay rano.
And everyone may have a different stopping point. Some people might say, I don't want any drops of poison in my water. Other people might say, I'm okay with 5 drops.
Ny olona tsirairay dia mety ho samihafa. Ny ray teny hoe ny ana dia goty ray ara dia tsy ataoko amin'ny zavatra izay hoaniko. Ny sasany mety manao hoe tsy maninona mba misy goty 5 kely ihany.
I think we can all agree that in a perfect world, there will be no poison in the water. In a perfect world,
Fantatsika fa any amin'ny tontolo tanteraka dia tsy hisy tsony izany pozina izany.
there will be no poison in the water.
Tsy hisy pozina ao amin'ny rano.
But we can all also agree that 1 or 2 drops is not going to kill you.
Mety manaiky ihany koa isika hoe raha 2 goty ve dia hahafaty.
So treat your animal-based foods like that poison.
Dia aoka zany a ny sakafo hohanintsika avy amin'ny biby ho eritreretina ho tahaka an'io pozina io.
A little bit probably is not going to harm you.
Mety hoe raha kely fotsiny dia mety tsy hampaninona anao ve?
If you're eating a lot of plants,
Fa raha toka mihinana zava-maniry be dia be ianao.
but if you keep eating more and more animal-based foods, at some point it's going to affect your health.
Fa raha ohatra ianao ka mitohy mihinana an'le pozina, ny hafarany dia hisy fiatraikany eo amin'ny fahasalamanao le izy.
So I want to end with some practical tips on how to implement a whole food plant-based diet.
Tiako zany ny hanolotra toro-hevitra azo ampiarina aminareo ny amin'ny ahoana ny ahafahana mihinana an'izany sakafo feno izany.
Start with the traditional dishes that you enjoy every single day.
Atombohy amin'ilay sakafo mahazatra anao zay tianao ny mihinana azy.
And instead of using meat as an ingredient, try replacing it with plant-based substitutes for the meat.
ka soloy sakafo avy amin'ny zavamaniry zany a lay hena zay mahazatra anao iny mihinana azy.
Using things like ground peanuts or crushed beans or tofu tends to be a good replacement.
Soloina tsaramaso, soloina voanjo, soloina tofu, soloina zany le hena.
And if you try it and you don't like it, then don't do that again.
Raha ohatra ka nandramanao le izy dia tsy tianao a dia aza atao tsony.
Try replacing the meat with something else
Soloy zavatra hafa indray zany le hena.
until you find something you enjoy.
Mandra-pahitanao hoe zavatra anankiray zay tena tianao manolo ny hena.
And when you find that, make sure that you include it in your diet on a regular basis.
Rehefa hitanao zay a dia ataovy azo antoka hoe ao anatin'ny sakafo hohaninao isan'andro io karazany io.
So you can see how this might take some time for you to experiment and find foods, plant-based alternatives that you enjoy.
Ary mety andany fotoana maromaro ianao vao mahita zany hoe inona le tena sakafo mifototra amin'ny zavamaniry a tena tianao.
Work with the foods that you have.
Aoka atomboka amin'ireo sakafo a zay efa anananao.
Build your plant-based recipes based on the foods that are available to you in your area.
Aoka hiainga amin'ireo sakafo amin'ny zavamaniry misy eo aminao ianao.
And remember that variety is the key. You want to have as many different variety of plants in your diet as possible.
Ary tsarovy a fa la izy samy hafa karazana iny isan-karazany maro iny a no tena tsy ambaratelo.
I know you have markets here in the city that sell lots of vegetables and fruits.
Fantatro fa misy tsena eto an-tanàna eto a zay mivarotra legioma sy zavamaniry betsaka.
Try things you haven't tried before.
Aoka andramana zavatra zay mbola tsy nohaninao mihitsy tany aloha tany.
If you live in an area where it's hard to find fresh fruits and vegetables, try starting your own home garden.
Raha ohatra ka mipetraka any amin'ny toerana zay sarotra ny mahita zavamaniry ianao a dia atombohy amin'ny fanananao zaridaina kely ao atokantranonao ao no ambolena le zavatra hohanina.
If you live in the city and you don't have a yard, you can still buy containers and grow plants inside the
Raha
containers.
ohatra ka mipetraka any an-tanàn-dehibe ianao tsisy tany ambolena dia azonao atao mamboly an'izany ao anaty boaty kely na zavatra hafa azo ambolena azy.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Rehefa anananao ny fahavononana dia isy lalana zay ho hitanao.
When my patients tell me, this is too hard, I can't do this,
Reo marari-tsaboky misy miteny hoe mafy loatra zany ka tsy vitako zany.
I tell them that's not true.
Dia teneniko izy ireo hoe tsy marina zany.
Because if I promised you $1 million by next month, if you ate plant-based for a whole month, how many of you would do it?
Raha ohatra tsy marina zany ho satria hoe tam'le marary hoe raha ozy aminareo hoe meko $1 million ianao a amin'ny volana ambony raha toa ka tsy mihinana fa tsy zavamaniry, izy aminareo no anaiky an'izay.
I guarantee everyone,
Azoko fa ianareo rehetra
you will all figure out how to make this diet work.
Dia anao zay azo atao mba azona io vola io.
Because there is a will.
Satria misy fahavonona anao zany, misy herin'ny sitrapo ao.
But if you don't have that will and that desire,
Raha tsy manana an'izay faniriana na herin'ny sitrapo zay ianao,
you will find unlimited excuses of why this is not possible.
dia ahita fomba maro ialana tsiny ianao hoe tsy vitako zany.
So start there. Start with why should I change my diet? And ask yourself, why is it that you want to improve your health?
Atombohy amin'ny fametrahanao fanontaniana ny tenanao hoe nahoana moa ny tenako ny mila manao an'izany fomba fiaina tsy mihinana fa tsy zavamaniry zay. Inona ny antony, inona ny vokany?
Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired?
Mo ve ianao reraka sy marary lava, reraka ny tsy fahasalamana?
Have many people in your family died young because of diseases?
Mety maro ny maty tanora atao amin'ny fianakavianao no ny aretina zay nahazo,
And you want to avoid the same pattern?
ary tianao ny hiala an'izany zavatra zay fa nanaranaka tao zany.
Maybe you want to avoid cancer. I had many people visit me today asking, how can I avoid cancer?
Misy ny olona maro zay nanantona hoe ahoana ny fomba hialana amin'ity homamiadana ity, ary mety te hiala amin'izany koa ianao.
Maybe you want to be there for your children and your grandchildren.
Mety maniry fiainana tsaratsara kokoa ny zanakao sy ny taranakao ianao, zavikelinao.
No matter what, unless you find these reasons for wanting to live a healthier life, you won't find the willpower to make it happen.
rehefa tokony hojerenao zany hoe inona ny antony tena hanosika anao, inona ny tombontsoa azonao a, dia inona no hery manosika anao a handray an'izay fanapahan-kevitra ny tsy hinana fa tsy zava-maniry zay. Mila antony mahafonja ianao zany.
So as you make these changes, remember that the goal is to change your lifestyle and not just a temporary fix.
Raha ohatra zany ka manao an'izany fiovana zany ianao dia aoka ho tsaroanao fa ny tanjona dia ny fomba fiainanao mihitsy ny iova fa tsy hoe zavatra atao mandritra ny fotoana voafetra fotsiny ihany.
This is a journey of a lifetime.
Satria dia ataonao mandritry ny androm-piainana izany.
And your eating habits are very ingrained.
Ary ny fahazarana ara-pihinanana izay anananao
So they will not change overnight.
dia tsy iova indray andro na indray alina.
If you find that you're trying to eat healthier and you go back to your old ways and you keep failing, don't get discouraged.
Azakivy raha toa ka nanapa-kevitra ianao kanefa indro fa latsaka indray tamin'ilay fahazarana teo aloha, azakivy.
Acknowledge the small successes you have.
Fa azontsika ataony manao fahombiazana mandeha tsikelikely.
Make small changes that you stick with.
Zay aoka anao fanovana kely zay tena tazominao fikirinao mafy zay fiovana zay.
And in the process of eating healthier, make sure that you're enjoying the process.
Ary aoka mba ho akafizinao sy ahita fafinaretana ianao amin'ireo fiovana sy ny dingana zay ataonao amin'ny fiainana.
I want to end with this one Bible verse.
Tiako ny anampy amin'ity toko sy andininy ao amin'ny baiboly ity.
It's found in 1 Corinthians 10,
Ao amin'ny Korintianina voalohany toko 10
verse 31.
ny andininy faraika amby 30.
It says, "Therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God."
Koa amin'izany na mihinana na misotro ianareo na inona ataonareo dia ataovy ho voninahitr'Andriamanitra.
Ultimately, the highest reason why we pursue healthy lifestyle choices is because we want to glorify our God in
Ny
heaven.
antony ambony indrindra manosika antsika hanova ny fomba fiainana na ny fomba fihinana dia ny hanome voninahitra an'Andriamanitra.
He gave us these amazing bodies, and we glorify Him when we take the best care of it possible.
Nomeny atsika ity tena izay mahatalanjona ity ka ny fomba tsara indrindra hanomezantsika voninahitra azy dia ny fikarakarantsika ny fomba fiainantsika mifanaraka amin'ny sitrapony.
And the true benefit of health is that you will hear His voice more clearly in your life.
Ary ny tena tombontsoa amin'izy ity dia andre ao amin'ny fiainanao ianao nisy tombontsoa azonao amin'ny fiainanao.
So may God bless you as you implement these changes in your life, and I pray that you will feel His pleasure in your life
Koa
change
ny
you.
vavako dia rehefa manao an'ny fiovana ianao dia hita fitahiana ary ho ankafizinao zany fiovana ho ataonao eo amin'ny fiainana izany.
Thank you and good night.
Misaotra antsika rehetra ary mirary alina mahafinaritra ho antsika.